Welcome from the deep. I am Mike the Finder.
And I am Book of Brett.
And today we are going to be talking about the 2018 film Mandy. I think that this movie and the director, Panos Cosmatos, it's for very specific people. And I think that it's an acquired taste. And I think that when you see this movie, you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. And I would be willing to bet there's very few in between on that, because it's a very divisive movie in that way.
I understand why you're saying that, because it's very art house.
It's very stylized.
It's very stylized. It's straight up fantasy horror.
Yeah.
But it's the most grounded fantasy horror I think I've seen in a while. And so I think yes, it's for specific people, but I wouldn't say that it's as specific as some of the other ones that you have made me watch.
I think this came up because I was telling you about how I had just watched Over the Black Rainbow. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Or Through the Black Rainbow? What's it called?
That was another one by Panos.
Yes.
Which really just feels like a Marvel villain directed a movie, by the way.
Beyond the Black Rainbow, that's what it's called. That's true. Yeah, he does have a very like Marvel-esque name. But no, the reason I brought this up is because you were a big fan of the Guillermo del Toro show. I'm blanking on the name of it.
Cabinet of Curiosities.
That's what it is.
I'm a huge fan of that.
Yeah, and Panos did the episode The Viewing with Eric Andre in it. And I remember you had what was your reaction to that? You had a kind of a strange reaction to that. I can't remember.
It was the one that definitely wasn't my favorite, but it was the one that made me appreciate art house cinema of any kind, whether it be episodic or narrative. It was the one that really, really made me appreciate over stylized art house.
Yeah.
Because we watched that, we did that before we did Dario Argento's Suspiria.
Right.
Which I think by seeing that episode, it made me appreciate Dario Argento more. And I gotta say, by watching Suspiria, it made me appreciate this more than I would have, because there are some seriously Argento-inspired shots in this movie.
That's the thing about Argento, is you don't realize how large his influence is until you start watching his movies, and you're like, oh, he has really reached a lot of people because of when he came up and the stylistic choices that he was making, regardless of him making mostly, and this is debatable, but mostly giallo films and art house horror, quote unquote. His influence goes really far. And I definitely agree with you that seemingly, I have nothing to back this up other than watching his movies. Panos Cosmatos' movies seem very Argento on the surface. And when you watch something like Suspiria, I agree. You get a greater appreciation for something like Mandy that is more modern when you can see the inspiration and where it's coming from. So
absolutely. I gotta say, one of the biggest reasons why I haven't watched Mandy is because this did come out several years ago. What is this, 8 years ago?
2018,
or something like that?
So it's 5 years old.
Okay, so this came out
maybe 6.
Right at the height of every movie poster looking like a fucking John Wick movie poster, with the hyper stylized lighting and the neon colors and the oh my god, we have a really big RGB budget we have to use. Like yes, exactly. So I feel like not every single, obviously, but I feel like a lot of movie posters around this time, several years ago, were this blue, purple, pink, magenta, whatever you want to call it, lighting. And so when I saw it, I was like, okay, this is Nicolas Cage getting into some indie movie where they did that. I did not know until I watched this that Elijah Wood was, please put in just a picture of Elijah Wood with long blonde hair now. I did not know that Elijah Wood was a producer on this.
Well, he runs that studio. I forget the name of it. What's the name of his studio?
I have no idea.
Here, let me look that up. He runs SpectraVision, which is like I think they focus mostly on art house horror and art house in general. But yeah, he produces a lot of really great art house movies. And it's because he runs that studio and he has his hands in a lot of really cool horror movies and he genuinely loves horror. I didn't know he was a producer on this till you just said that though.
Oh, you didn't? Yeah,
No.
his name pops up in the opening credits.
Yeah, I didn't notice that at all. Yeah. Producer of Mandy, Elijah Wood, Nicolas Cage back in Oscar-level form with revenge film's surprise success. And that's the thing, is I think that before Mandy, Nicolas Cage was still kind of, he had a couple here and there, like Pig. I can't remember if Pig was before or after this, but
I think Pig's after this.
I think it is. But I feel like Mandy was a real, like, turning point. Like, you could tell that he was pivoting to more art house, over-stylized, deeper movies than he was getting or making before. And I feel like Mandy is the real turning point for all of that. And
yeah,
God damn it, it's such a good script to choose if you're trying to pivot in that way. And Panos Cosmatos is a really good choice for a director when you're trying to do that. And let's get into, do you want to give us your synopsis of this? And then we'll go over to the podcast drive-in and look what IMDb says about it.
Yeah, so Mandy is about a logger and his wife who live out in the woods. They kind of are enjoying, having a secluded life when some religious fanatics show up and kind of bring all of that to a screeching halt. And I don't know how to tie this into a well-constructed synopsis, but there's a biker gang too.
Yeah, I mean, that's the
thing.
I
don't know how else to put that in there, except because Jesus freaks and a biker gang make Nicolas Cage very sad in the woods. Maybe that's a better synopsis.
I mean, it's hard to really nail down what this movie's about because right in the middle it flips and becomes almost like an entirely different movie.
This movie is everywhere and nowhere at once.
Yeah.
This movie it touches on so many genres, it touches on so many different things, and I just going into this, I'm just going to say, holy shit, was this a lot of fun.
Beyond the Black Rainbow is from 2010, I think. And when you watch that before you watch Mandy, you can really see where a lot of his style is coming from. But the thing with Mandy is that it has a significantly more followable plot than something like Beyond the Black Rainbow does. And so when you're watching the first half of it, you definitely get that vibe of like, it's just this weird art house movie. And then it flips and becomes something completely different. And I think that's what makes this movie so damn fun, is because it's not pretentious all the way through.
But it maintains that art house through line from beginning to end.
Yes.
From beginning to end. However, I really, really think it's a lot more prevalent in the beginning. And I think a lot of that is because Nicolas Cage's life is much more stable in the beginning. And then by the end, we get a lot more of that art house stuff yet again, but pushing on fantasy. And I think a lot of that is because we've got some form of closure for him at the end.
Yeah. All right, well, let's jump over to the podcast drive-in here and see what IMDb has to say about Mandy. Mandy's from 2018. It's not rated?
Yeah, it is. This is an R movie.
It definitely should be. It probably has too much violence and shit.
I think maybe they put in R and then maybe had a typo and hit the N on accident.
It's 2 hours and 1 minute long, which is generally something I would complain about. But in this film, because it switches tone so much in the middle of the movie, I think it's a little more tolerable than other 2 hour long movies.
Yeah.
And then the one sentence synopsis from IMDb.
The beginning's a little slow.
Yeah, it definitely is, for sure. The one sentence synopsis from IMDb says, the enchanted lives of a couple in a secluded forest are brutally shattered by a nightmarish hippie cult and their demon biker henchmen, propelling a man into a spiraling, surreal rampage of vengeance. That is one of the best synopsises I've ever heard on IMDb.
Mine was better. Religious fanatics, biker gangs, Nicolas Cage sat in the woods. Go.
It's directed by Panos Cosmatos. It's written by Panos Cosmatos, Aaron Stewart On, and Casper Kelly. It stars Nicolas Cage, Andrea Riseborough, and Linus Roach. So I mean, you already said you had fun with this film. I want to know how you felt about it, though.
Not a lot of people do surrealism well in movies, and this is a masterfully done surrealist fantasy horror. And you have to call it surreal because so much happens in a dreamlike state, and even the things that are happening that aren't in dreams, that aren't fantasy, that aren't visions, whatever you want to call them, even those things are happening in almost like a dreamlike state. I mean, and that's because when Nicolas Cage decides to consume part of a goop in a jar, which, why? After that, we really do kind of go off on this whole, okay, this is grounded in reality in like again, I go back to John Wick because it is very much, you know, like something catastrophic happens and we get revenge, really any revenge story. But it's a very surreal movie and it's done masterfully well. The lighting is not realistic, but it is beautifully done. Every single actor in this movie is good. All of them. None of them do a shitty job. Nicolas Cage made me cry. I've never seen a Nick Cage movie. I call him Nick. I've never seen a Nicolas Cage movie that made me cry. This one did, dude. It really, really did. I don't know if we're going to get into spoilers here. Can we do spoilers here, or are we waiting on that?
We'll wait on that for a little bit. Try to keep it spoiler-free for now, though.
When the biggest turning point in this movie happens, dude, I was tearing up. And then when we get the scene with him in the bathroom, finally processing everything that happened, his switching and changing from emotions is just like, where the hell has this been? Because I mean, if you watch him in like The Rock or Con Air, or those are the two movies that come to mind.
Face
Off. Thank you. You watch these movies with him, and it's like, okay, yeah, he can do the action star thing. You know, there are moments in the action star movies where you kind of get this like, it doesn't seem like the acting is like spot on sometimes with those. Nicolas Cage does raw emotion really well, apparently.
Yeah.
Like, I've not seen... The last movie I saw him in was Renfield. I just watched him in Renfield a couple weeks ago. And that showed me that Nicolas Cage does crazy really, really well. He does raw emotion really well, too. I was really, really happy to see Richard Brake in this, even though it's for just a little bit. He plays the chemist. I just saw him in 31, and I really, really liked him in 31.
Did you like 31 in general?
In general, I did like 31. I mean, it was, it was a Rob Zombie movie, but
he's fucking. It was fun. But Richard Brake is great in that film. Great.
Yeah, he's fantastic in it. And so, but that's what I'm saying, man. Like the light, everything in this movie is done phenomenally well. And the only thing I can really sit there and go, that might have been, lackluster or whatever, is the pacing at the beginning for a very specific amount of time. And so I wouldn't even say that the pacing is bad, because it's like, what is it going to be perfect the whole fucking time?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason the pacing is slow at the beginning, though, is because it gets so fucking crazy at the end. And he's really trying to, like you said earlier, you really get a sense of how happy they are to just sort of be together and living in the woods and being able to survive out on their own and stuff. And I think without that slow pacing at the beginning, the second half doesn't hit as hard.
No, I think that's true. And it does. This movie, when people say a movie is a roller coaster ride. They're obviously talking about the loops, the turns, it takes you on this crazy ride. This entire movie is the first 5 seconds of a roller coaster of just oh my god! Like, it's just, dude, this movie at a certain point catapults from 0 to fucking 1,000.
Yeah.
Like, it is going at a slow pace. We are getting our character development in there. We are finding it has to be slow, like you said, because if it's not slow, we don't really get the amount of time that this couple deserves for us to see how much they really care about one another. And without seeing that, the end of Act 1 doesn't have the impact that it does, and the rest of the movie does not have the hoorah vibe that it does, because the last part of this movie, every single kill, I was sitting there going, oh my god. Like, everything is so intense, but everything's intense for a different reason. The beginning's intense. There's an intensity in its slowness, as far as like the intense compassion these two feel for one another.
Yeah.
And the rest of it is intense from an energy standpoint, a gore standpoint. Everything about this. I think this is exactly what Panos had in mind when he was making this.
Yeah.
Because I don't see how this wasn't. Everything's so meticulous. Everything is executed so meticulously well. Now, this is not a movie that sends like a huge message. I did think that for a while there, with him being a logger, that this was going to take on some like environmentalist message kind of thing, which there wouldn't have been anything wrong with that because logging. But I really thought there was going to be a certain point that we were going to get this like deeper message, not shoved down our throats, but put into a place where maybe it doesn't fit properly.
Well, I mean, if you look at it from a religious standpoint, you could look at the message there about how horrific it can twist people's minds and make them insane and make them feel like they're doing the right thing when they're clearly in the wrong. So there's some of that in there.
Well, but that's what Fox News is for.
Okay, well, I mean, that's fair. I think this is not a first-time watch for me. I think this is this might be the third time I've seen this. This hits differently on a rewatch because you know what's coming, but that doesn't make the main thing that happens in this movie, the turning point, any less significant. And I think that the slowness that you're talking about at the beginning, is really there so that we get a connection with the two of them. The fact that we sit there and hear some of their conversations while they're laying in bed together, and we hear about their hopes, their dreams, how they feel about each other, all of it. We get to know her just a little bit, just enough so that we feel how much he cares for her. I think all of that is the reason that the second half of this movie really hits as hard as it does. Because without any of that, it's just it might as well be John Wick's dog. Like, you know what I mean? Like like he's having a reaction to them taking his dog, but there's not that feeling of love in there with it, regardless of how much he loves the dog. But
I'm sorry, are you trivializing the relationship that John Wick has with that terrier?
Only in relation to Mandy. Because that's the thing, is like the fact that we spend so much slow time at the beginning is really what makes this significant. And when we get to the point of that big event happening, I think that the reason you cry is because of those things. And you
100%.
really
Absolutely.
Want him to bring vengeance down upon these people. And the reason that it's okay to have this almost video game-esque violence inside of this film is because you want that vengeance to happen so badly. And so you're more willing to accept the over-the-top violence when the first half of this movie is so art house meets love story type thing.
Yeah, well, and I also think that a lot of it has to do with them putting so many fantasy elements into it.
Yeah.
That once we do get these, as you put it, video game-esque scenes in action, you're already aware that you're in a surrealist type of setting.
Yeah.
And so that makes it okay.
Right.
Not that it's not okay to begin with, but it just makes it a lot more understandable. It makes it more acceptable that all of this is happening.
You're more willing to sit through it. Yeah.
I really think that there are two things that happen before we get really anything past the establishing shot that already told me what kind of movie I was in for. The fact that you basically have rock and roll lyrics at the beginning. And then the fact that the opening scene is done by King Crimson. If you don't know who King Crimson is, go look up King Crimson and you're welcome.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw those two things, I was like, yes. And then, and while I was watching this, I was thinking that this is just a little bit off topic, so I won't take too long on it. But the band Lorna Shore recently put out a trilogy of videos for one of their newest albums. And do you know who Lorna Shore is?
Yeah.
Okay. The clips from this replacing the clips in their music videos that aren't them would be fucking perfect. And I'm really thinking about like re-editing their video for that and just splicing in shots from Mandy instead. But this is a heavy metal sci-fi surrealist horror mindfuck. And there are tons of mindfucky scenes in here. But there is one scene that I think just made me smile the most, and it's when all she does is break down the cult leader by laughing at him.
It's so powerful.
Dude,
you can feel that man crumble under her laughter, and up to that point, he has so much confidence.
Oh, yeah.
And just feels like this dude that knows everything. And all she has to do to break him down is laugh at him. Yep. It's fucking amazing.
Well, and a lot of it's because she's not just laughing at him, but she's laughing at him when he's at his absolute most vulnerable.
Yeah.
He's in front of people that idolize him. He is putting out this energy of egotism, and he is nude. I cannot think, if you put yourself in that situation, I cannot think of anybody who wouldn't just sit there and go,
yeah. And that is,
and he does. The dude just breaks.
Yeah, it's immediate too. Like you can just feel that. Like I said, you can feel that man crumble under that laughter, and it is such a significant moment where he really expects her to just be like, "Oh yes, master, I come with you. I don't want this lowly logger anymore. I come with you and belong to you now." And when she laughs, it is such. Not only does it make him feel powerless, but it also, for the audience, it also brings this moment of clarity of how fucking insane this guy is. Right. And regardless of whether she's pumped full of drugs or not, I think that moment is the reason that we really, really feel her death more than we should, because it's such a small thing that she does. Yeah. It doesn't even feel significant to anyone else but him, really.
Right.
And it really breaks him down so much that you're like, really? He's gonna fly off the handle about that? And it's just so fucking powerful, man.
And on the topic of her being pumped full of drugs, I want to know what is going through someone's mind that thinks, you know what's a great aphrodisiac? Acid and hornet stings. That'll get her juices going. Like it's just and again
someone who's never done acid, that's what that is.
That's exactly what it is. Well, and
not to mention tried to engage in intercourse on acid. That's right. What it is.
Well, and that's why like a part of me that's another part of this movie that stood out to me, because as somebody who spent the greater part of their teens and 20s consuming everything they could find under the sun, I was watching this going, either the guy, there are moments in here that are that feel very genuine. The vocal pitch changes feel very genuine. Yeah. The scene where she starts putting what's the word I'm looking for? She basically starts seeing her face over his.
Oh, yeah.
That's a thing, that the facial structure changes, the tracers that we get, the intense color differentiations. That's all very reminiscent of Acid, and I promise you, I know. And so that stuff really stood out to me. And then there are scenes like this, where, although I've read a lot of stories of a lot of hippie cults being like acid cults, and sex was a big part of it. So, maybe it's obviously different for everybody, but I really think that element again lends itself to why the art house thing works so well, because by the time, and it actually, to me, I would think would actually create a bigger challenge for them, because by the time we get to the scenes of them being on LSD, how do you take it up from where you're at already? And they did it.
Well, and that's where the over-the-top violence and shit comes in too, because that's the only way to top something like that. And I feel like maybe if you were to ride the LSD thing out the rest of the film, it wouldn't, I don't know, it wouldn't have that same punch, because he needs to have that breaking moment. And the scene you were talking about in the bathroom, where he's kind of coming to terms with everything that just happened to him and her, and he's just left alone. I fucking love the moment when he comes in the TV and the Goblin mac and cheese commercial is playing, because it just feels
real, by the way. I looked it up.
No, but it feels like this very real moment where the TV is left on, and you just had this really fucking traumatic experience happen, and you're just so dazed and blank from the experience that just happened that the thing on the TV, I could just, when that happened, I could feel that moment, that commercial being burned into his brain for eternity, that he's going to remember that moment for the rest of his life every time he sees that commercial, regardless of whether he's paying attention to it or not.
Yeah.
That is such a beautiful moment.
Well, and again, going to the, first of all, the set design in this movie.
Oh, dude, it's crazy good.
That bathroom is so Kubrick-esque.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, it's not Kubrick-esque. It's reminiscent of the time. I get that. But it still made me it made me think about Kubrick. But that whole scene where he's just like, he's clutching his throat because it hurts to drink, but he has to drink. And as he drinks more, he processes it more. And just like, dude, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it right now, actually.
Yeah.
It's dude, that scene made me go, fuck yeah, Nick.
Well, okay, I think now is a good time to get into spoilers. I think it's pretty obvious how we both feel about this movie. I think we both really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Regardless of how not a big fan of art house you are, I think there's enough in here for people that are not a big fan of art house but enjoy horror and action movies, that if you can stick through the first pretentious half of it, you really get rewarded with some stuff that you don't think is coming. So,
dude, okay, so it's funny you mentioned it being pretentious, because I don't know if this is a sign of me enjoying art house more than I used to. I don't know if this is me appreciating it more, but nothing about this movie actually did feel pretentious to me.
Well, I do think it's because you've started to watch more stuff like Suspiria. You didn't. I know you didn't love Infinity Pool, but it's that same sort of a thing where it's just drug-fueled insanity. And I think that the more of that kind of stuff that you watch, the more you can learn to appreciate it. And there is definitely pretentiousness in here in the film language that is present, and the stuff that he presents you with. But it's not as pretentious as some other things that we have watched in the past.
A Girl Walks Home at Midnight.
A Girl Walks Home at Midnight alone. What is it called? I fucking forget the name of that movie all the time.
It's called the movie with the stupid clown scene that makes no sense. That's what it is.
I forgot about that scene. Yeah.
It's the reason I don't like that movie. That scene of just like...
Yeah, it's called A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. That is one of the most pretentious movies that we've ever watched. And it's because of stuff like the clown shit. There's not stuff in Mandy like that, but even if there were, I feel like because of the drug use and the situation, you could argue the bikers are like that, but it's presented in a way that feels not only real but also significant to the story that they're telling, and it doesn't come out of left field in the same way that like the clown does in A Girl
I
Walks
feel like
Home
the
Alone at
biker
Night.
gang. I feel like the biker gang is like an alternate universe of Metalocalypse.
Okay, the turning point, we're going to get into spoilers from here on out. The turning point in this film, obviously, is when she laughs at him and he decides, okay, I'm killing this bitch. She is not what I thought she was, and it is time to get rid of her because she humiliated me in a way that no one has before, especially in front of my most devoted people. So the moment that
And
hits...
most sensual lover.
Yeah, exactly. That fucking old lady drives me crazy. The most significant moment in this film for me is obviously when they're setting her on fire, and the fucking dude, the acting that Nicolas Cage has in this moment is so fucking powerful and real, and it really feels like you're watching this guy experience her fucking death in front of you.
I almost felt like I was feeling what he was feeling. Now, a lot of times when things like this happen, my empathy kind of goes into overdrive. Not in the sense of like feeling what the character is feeling,
right?
But it only happens when everything leading up to that moment has already pulled me into the movie.
Yeah.
And so I think that's like, I was genuinely sitting there, putting myself into his head and like feeling him feel these things that we're seeing on screen. And dude, it broke my heart, man.
Yeah.
Like, it really did. I'm watching him just cry, and I'm sitting there just like trying to wrap my head around the unfathomable experience of watching someone you love be burned alive in front of you in the same way that she just described birds being killed in a story 5 minutes before, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And to see him go through that and to see this escalation, because I mean, he tears up when he realizes what's about to happen, but like at first he's gritting his teeth and we have no audio, but you can still, it's like you can hear him. You can hear the acting that he's doing while only hearing soundscapes.
Yeah.
And then to have the juxtaposition of that cut to the happiness you see on the cult, it's just, dude, if it doesn't fill you with this just like, get him, dude, get him. If like, I don't know how you couldn't be filled with that watching this scene. This might be the most powerful scene I have ever seen from Nicolas Cage.
Oh, for sure.
Sorry, Nick Cage. My bad, I called him Nick Cage.
I think that this is why I was saying earlier that I think that this is a real inflection point for him. This is a moment where he not only, I think he knew he had this in him the entire time for years, even when he was blackballed, but I don't think he got, because he was blackballed, I don't think he got the opportunity to show that he was even capable of this. And the movies that you were naming off earlier, I off the top of my head, I can't remember. I think he had like, let me see. So this says, here, I'll just pop it up on screen.
Okay.
This says Nicolas Cage used to be one of Hollywood's biggest stars, but due to a slew of bad decisions and unnecessary expenses, Cage found himself debt-stricken and stepped away from the limelight. Since then, he has mostly starred in indie films. So I think, if I had to guess, I would be willing to bet a lot of his...
blackballed necessarily.
Well, what I was going to say is I think a lot of his later movies before he stepped away really started to flop really fucking badly. And so he was not necessarily blackballed, but just wasn't pulling the same audience that he was pulling before. Not to mention when you look at his performances at stuff like Face Off, and a whole bunch of other stuff. He just always comes off as so fucking unhinged and kind of crazy.
He is unhinged. Have you watched interviews with him? The dude's a fucking lunatic.
But this is why I still haven't seen The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. That movie is about... Do you know what that movie's about?
It's basically about him in the latter stages of his career,
It's Pedro Pascal being a massive fan of him and being super rich in a different country and bringing him in and showing him the Nicolas Cage memorabilia that he has and all of that kind of shit. It looks really fucking interesting, and maybe we should maybe we should review that film because I haven't seen it and I really fucking want to. But I think that he knew he had this in him this entire time, but I don't think he was getting projects that allowed him to show stuff like that. When you look at Con Air or Face Off or any of those other really massive, big budget popcorn movies that he was doing, there are not moments in there that give you an opportunity to show this, because like you said, this really feels like it's happening in front of you. And it is because you could set that up till the day is long, but if you can't get an actor in that role that can make you feel that moment, none of it hits as hard as it should. And he is stellar in that moment. The fucking moment where he fucking looks her in the face and she's just ash is so fucking heartbreaking. And then it's followed by that moment of silence in front of the TV and in the bathroom and coming to terms with everything that happened. It's just so fucking powerful. I don't want to keep sticking on this moment, but that is the moment where everything turns and he decides, I have to fucking kill them all. And that is when the movie shifts into this insane action movie where he just goes and hunts down the rest of these people and kills them mercilessly. It's such a tonal shift from the first half of the movie, but like we were saying, because everything has been set up the way it is, you don't feel like you're watching somebody. I haven't seen John Wick, obviously, but it really gives this sense of like, he is not doing this because he feels the overwhelming need to murder. He's doing this because he has the overwhelming need to bring vengeance upon the people that hurt the only person in his life that means anything to him.
I think he really, really wanted to do it.
Well, obviously, but he wasn't like
has to.
But he's like, the thing with horror, generally speaking, is that we have a bad guy that is doing these things because he feels the overwhelming need to do these things. And in this, you have a guy that is a normal dude that is brought to the brink of fucking insanity through drugs and is it blood that he drinks? Is that what it is? Is it blood and LSD? Like,
what? Oh, the jar?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know. They just describe it as a bad batch made by the chemist. That's all they ever described it as. It looks like something you get from a vagrant outside a Meow Wolf exhibit.
Yeah, but I mean, the rest of this movie is just, there's not a whole lot to break down after that scene, because the rest of the movie is just him tripping and murdering. There is actually the girl he doesn't kill. Okay, I mean, that's fair.
That was one of those scenes where I'm a little conflicted on that one, because if I was in his position, I can't say, now I obviously can't say that I'd also go after a cult and a demonic biker gang in his position either, but if I had gotten that far in the process, that bitch dies. I'm sorry, but you were involved one way or the other, and you already showed me how crazy you were by pulling the fucking trigger next to your head. No, you go too. But I understand why he didn't, because she's the only one that showed remorse.
Yes.
But from my perspective, from where he's sitting while all this is happening, he didn't see her show remorse. So I think she should have died.
That's true.
I wanted her to die. I did too. Still want her to die.
Yeah. I think it's just the fact that she associated with any of them at all is enough for me.
100%. 100%.
She was at a point in her life where she thought all that stuff was okay at some point. Otherwise, she wouldn't be with those people.
I didn't see her leave the building when they stung her in the neck with a Japanese murder hornet.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Dude, when they pulled that thing out of the jar, I went, no. And it's so weird because it's just as, first of all, I've watched way too many Sting videos on YouTube. I think that's a big part of this. I've watched a lot of Sting videos and like the pain index videos, you know what I'm talking about?
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
You haven't? Oh, no. Cool. I'll get a 6-pack and we'll watch some Sting videos.
No thanks.
I've watched a lot of those, and so, dude, when they pulled that thing out of the jar, first of all, I'm already sitting here going, because giant insects like that like make me super duper uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so when they're pulling it out, I'm going, no. And then when I realized it was a hornet, I was like, and then I'm sitting here thinking like getting stung by that after having been given a massive dose of LSD in the eyes, by the way. Yeah. I'm sitting here going like, what would I have done? Oh, I would have died. That's right. I would have just killed myself and had a heart attack.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Have a fucking heart attack at the thought of it. Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, it is the least amount of violence, or is the least violent act in this movie. Yeah. And it is the only one that made me go, All
right, well, give me your final thoughts and your ratings on Mandy, because I'm not to shit all over your taste. Generally speaking, this is not something
but you're gonna push through it.
Yeah, I'm gonna push through it anyway. I didn't know how you were gonna feel about this film, because it's fucking weird and it's violent. Yep. And it's not generally something I would have thought that would be up your alley, but because, like we were saying earlier, you have watched, I think, more art house this year than you have the entire rest of your life. So I think that makes a significant difference.
And going into this review, I did have the thought of, if I tell him I like it, he's gonna make me watch more of this shit. It's like, maybe I should just shit all over this and he won't make me watch this anymore.
Well, luckily for you, Panos does not have that many movies. So, and I'm not going to make you watch Beyond the Black Rainbow, because you will hate that. You will for sure hate that movie.
You know what? I've been thinking about introducing a series from my old channel into this one that I used to do called Angry Movie Reviews. Right. And maybe that'll be the one I do for the first Angry Movie Reviews segment on the channel.
Well, to be honest, now that you've seen this and didn't hate it, I would be interested to see how you feel about that movie, but there's a significant difference in terms of existing plot from Mandy to Beyond the Black Rainbow. And Beyond the Black Rainbow is something that I pride myself in, and generally speaking, like, understanding out there art house films and being able to sort of pick apart what they're about and what I think they're about. Beyond the Black Rainbow, I had to go read boards and stuff to hear what other people were thinking that movie was about. And until I did that, I was kind of like lost. So that's one of those movies that I was really like, I don't understand what I just watched. And so going into Mandy, I really didn't know how you were going to feel about it. So tell me your final rating and your final thoughts on Mandy.
Mandy isn't what you think it is. Whatever the fuck you think Mandy is, it's not. It is all over the place. It covers genres that I wouldn't expect from it. Fantasy horror is not something that usually goes well. This one, dude, this movie's perfect. I can't believe I'm saying that about art house, but it's just, when you look at it outside the context of perfection compared to something else, maybe, okay, it's not perfect in that regards, but what this movie wants to be is exactly what it fucking is. It's a 10 out of 10.
Wow.
It's a 10 out of 10.
Holy shit.
There's nothing wrong with this movie. I want there to be something wrong with it. I want to sit there and go, oh, they were pretentious here, or to say something bad about it. But from a technical standpoint, it's spot on. From a creative standpoint, it's spot on. I mean, it's just everything. Again, I don't rate movies in comparison to, like, if this movie was a 10 out of 10, how is this movie in comparison to it?
I don't think anyone should do that personally.
I don't think you should. I know people do, but I don't think you should. I think you need to look at it and sit there and go, okay, what was it trying to achieve? Did it achieve that? Okay, perfect. Start at 10 if it achieved that, and then whittle away the numbers as things went wrong throughout the movie. I think that's really the best way you can go about. You shouldn't start at 0 and go to 10. Otherwise, you're just another person shitting all over movies for no fucking reason. Yeah. This movie does what it's supposed to do. It made me cry, Mike. It made me cry. I can't remember when was the last time you teared up? I'm not saying you teared up for this one, but when was the last time you teared up for a horror movie?
For a horror movie? Oh,
For a horror movie.
It definitely doesn't happen often. I can't
It
even
doesn't
off
happen,
the top of my
dude.
head. I don't know.
No, I mean Bambi was pretty sad.
Not a horror movie.
When you're 5, it is. And so for me,
Touché.
this is a 10 out of 10.
Okay, well, that is surprising. I just looked at my Letterboxd review from when I first watched this back in 2021, and it is lower than I expected it to be.
You gave it a 9?
I gave it an 8.
Okay.
I think that upon a rewatch, and again, I think this is the third time I've seen this, I think that this hits a little bit harder when you know what's coming. And there's that anticipation at the beginning that you feel when you know what's coming. And it just, all of it plays so fucking differently when you see it upon a rewatch that I think that it actually makes it a stronger film because of that anticipation. The lighting is some of the best, and this is Beyond the Black Rainbow has a very similar vibe to it, where the lighting is just insane. The cinematography is insane. It looks, I don't know what they shot this on, but it looks film. I don't know if it is or not.
It looks like Hobo with a shotgun.
Yes, exactly. That is a very good, yes. But it looks like they shot it on film. It's got the vibe of the 70s that they're going for in it. I fucking love the bloom on the lighting. All of it is fucking beautiful. It's nostalgic looking. It's phenomenal. And the cinematography that he uses on top of the just fucking godlike performance from Nicolas Cage it's baffling that all of this fell together as good as it did when it's about what it's about, and that turning point in the middle of the film happens. It shouldn't work. It just shouldn't. And yet somehow all of it falls together in this way that makes this damn near perfect movie. And I fucking love it. Everything about this movie is what I enjoy in horror. It's horrifying. It's beautiful. It's significant. It's filled with emotion. The fucking vengeance that he makes you feel. You feel a want for vengeance when you watch this film, and then you get it with this that fucking, oh my god, dude, the scene where he throws the battle axe and it sticks in that guy's face, and it's all of it is backlit, so you only see the shadows and stuff. It's phenomenal, and every single death in this movie feels significant because it's supposed to. Because of the shit that he sets up at the beginning of this movie, you want all of these horrible things to happen to all of these people, and that is not something you get out of horror all that much. Most of the time, particularly with slashers and stuff like that, you have this insane person going around and hunting this group of teenagers generally down, and you feel bad for the teenagers, generally speaking, because they didn't really do all that much wrong. And this insane
it's usually
person,
a version of that mommy issues.
Exactly. And this insane person is hunting them all down, and you're like, oh, this is horrifying because none of these kids deserved it. This is Mandy is horrifying because all of these people deserve it, and even the girl that he doesn't kill, I feel like really fucking deserved it.
Yep.
And this plays on your emotions in such a good way that most modern horror does not, that it really feels different and better than, quote, most other elevated horror. And that is why Panos Cosmatos has become one of my favorite modern directors. And when you look at his filmography, let's just jump over here. He has Mandy, Beyond the Black Rainbow, and Cabinet of Curiosities. That's what he's done. And when you really look at that, 3 fucking movies and Mandy is his second outing, that's fucking crazy. That's absolutely insane. Now,
some Ari Aster shit right there.
Exactly. He's working on something called Necrocosm.
God.
I don't know what this is going to be about. I think
it tells you right there.
Well, it says, yeah. I don't want to read. I don't want to read the fucking synopsis. I'd rather be I'd rather be walking into that movie a little blind. But I think that not having that many outings as a director, and this is your fucking second movie. I can't wait to see what he does more. And The Viewing only solidified that more for me.
We call that fuck you talent.
Yeah, exactly. This is a guy that I will have my eye on for the rest of his career, because even if I didn't fall in love with Beyond the Black Rainbow, all of the pieces that he was building in that movie translate over to Mandy in a very good way. And you can see somebody that has a vision for what he wants, and maybe he didn't even write it. Let me look. Yeah, he did write it. His writing wasn't necessarily there yet. I think that he granted, he did have 2 writing partners in this movie, and maybe that's what he needed. This is clearly a guy that knows how to direct and can write, but obviously when he has help with a few other people, this is a significant movie in art house horror. And I think that one of the better things that we've seen in the past 10, maybe even 20 years. That's how I feel about it. So my rating for this is going to go up from the first time I watched it. I'm going to rate this a 9 out of 10. I don't think this is perfect. It's a little long, a little slow at the beginning.
You're wrong.
It's a little long. It's a little slow at the beginning, and there are some other things that I can nitpick here and there. But yeah, this is super fucking strong, and I think that he should be on the watch list of everybody that enjoys this kind of shit. So,
yep.
Wow. All right. I did not expect you to come in higher than me this time. I really didn't. I didn't know what the fuck to expect from this. Well, yeah, in a different way. All right, so let us know what you thought about Mandy, because I know that this is a very divisive movie. This is not something that everybody is going to enjoy. This is for a very narrow niche group of people, I think, which is why he didn't have what?
I thought you were going to say narrow-minded.
No. Narrow niche group of people. I think that's why this movie hit when it did come out. I think a lot of people were talking about it, but I don't think it led to massive commercial success for Panos Cosmatos. Although it definitely should have, but when you make a movie like this, I don't think that by its very nature that it's going to be commercially successful in like a massive wide release sort of a way. But this is definitely something that for those who get it is really significant. So let us know what you thought about this film. Thank you guys for watching. If you like this, make sure you hit the like button. If you really liked it, make sure you hit the subscribe button, because we got a lot more content like this on this channel. We do a podcast, at least one video every single week, or at least we try to. Sometimes we miss, but either way, that's neither here nor there. Anyway, so thank you for getting all the way to the end of this podcast. If you did, you are who we make these videos for. We really super appreciate any of the love and the watches and the likes and all that stuff. We really fucking appreciate it. So thank you for getting all the way to the end of this video, and we will see you guys next time from the deep. Bye-bye.
Ta-ta.